Yo, what is going on? Hope everyone's doing well. I'm doing pretty well. If you're listening to this in the morning time, if you're listening to this in the afternoon, if you're listening to this at night, have a good morning, have a good evening. I hope your day is going well. Whatever time you're listening to this at. But just want to welcome you guys all back. Thank you for listening to this. If this is your first time listening, then thank you for stumbling upon this podcast. I appreciate it. If you've listened to this podcast before and you're kind of like a returning listener, a returning viewer, then thank you obviously for joining us again. I just want to say, hey, how's it going? And hope you're doing well. I'm just getting back and just getting into the flow of things. I just went on like a little bit of a camping trip recently, so I was kind of chilling out for the weekend. I still did a little bit of exercise. I was running around the lake. I was going for boat rides, doing a little bit of fishing, doing a little bit of barbecue and chilling out, doing kind of some of my favorite things with, my girlfriend, my dad, my dog. It was pretty laid back. But like I said, still got a little bit of exercise in, and I'm happy to be back, back in Vancouver here and back to, the daily hustle, the daily grind. But it was nice to be able to have a little break. It was nice to be able to have a little relaxation. So I hope you guys are able to get a little bit of that as well, if need be, if that's necessary for you. If not, then just know that you're not the only one on the grind. You're not the only one that's working away. Even today, for example, kind of a slow day in terms of like the renovations that we do. If you didn't know that's my day job. That's what I do during the day usually. I do home renovations. I work in construction. I'm a carpenter. But today was a little bit of a slow day. Had a little bit of a miscommunication in terms of supplies, materials I was going to pick up and start a new renovation. But like I said, a little bit of communication error on that end. So I found myself with a little bit of free time. I thought, let's record an episode and let's kind of chat with people and see how everyone else is doing. So I just thought I'd jump on here and then do a little bit of recording, and hopefully you guys can pull some value out of today's episode. So I wanted to start off just by, giving you a little bit of update on how I'm doing. When you listen to this, it's probably going to be a couple days before my birthday, so I'm going to be turning 27, which is pretty sweet. Join the 27 club. Hopefully not actually, but every year around my birthday, I do a lot of reflecting on how the last year went and how I feel about where I'm at in my life. And obviously, this is a common theme that I talk about on the podcast often. But I remember last year when I was turning 26, I was thinking about how pissed off I was about where I was at, financially, in my goals there, my goals in terms of my physique, my goals in terms of a lot of places where my life could be at, different places you can measure it, right? And I remember basically just feeling like I wasn't really where I wanted to be. And as I'm driving home from camping yesterday, I remember thinking pretty similar thoughts. And so this is something that I journal about often. This is something that I talk to you guys about often on the podcast. And I was just kind of thinking about the fact that every single year I kind of seem like I'm feeling the exact same way. And so in the last month, I've made like some pretty big changes. Obviously, I sobered up in terms of like I stopped smoking weed every single day of my life. I'm right now currently on day 28. By the time this episode comes out, it'll be probably day 32 or whatever. But, I made some big changes in that regard. And so I'm hoping that next time, like next year, this time when I'm turning 28, I won't be feeling the exact same way. I'll probably still have this kind of feeling of not being where I want to be, but hopefully I'll feel like I'm on more of the right track. And right now, I definitely do feel like I'm more on the right track than I was last year. I feel like the last 5-6 years in my life, I've definitely kind of spent a lot of my time feeling more busy than productive. It's very easy to just kind of fill your schedule with a bunch of things you have to do, and then do them, and then feel like you've done a lot because you have, but they're not things that are getting you closer towards your goals. And that's something that I've talked about recently, because it's something I've been thinking about recently. It's something that I've been kind of journaling about And between this, like recording podcasts and journaling, that's kind of how I deal with my thoughts nowadays. Maybe you talk to a counselor, maybe you talk to loved ones. I don't know. Maybe you just listen to podcasts and then journal after. Maybe you just listen to the way that I deal with my own thoughts. I don't know. But yeah, so that's kind of how I've felt recently. And so I've had to kind of hit the journal recently as well and think about, how could I be a little bit less busy and a little bit more productive? How can I execute on things that are actually going to get me closer towards my goals rather than just fill my schedule up with things to do? So that's kind of where my head is at right now. And I'm hoping that next year, this time, like I said, by the time I'm turning 28, I'll feel like, hey, my 27th year on this earth has been a good one and I used it well. And, trying my best not to compare myself to a lot of other people around me, the people that I see on social media, the people that I see, succeeding all the time, because I understand that everyone's timeline is different. I understand as well that, and it's been hard for me to start to understand these things, but I understand as well that if I didn't go through the, quote unquote, wasted years of my life, then I wouldn't have learned these lessons. I would have squandered a lot of things away if I had gotten or achieved certain things earlier than I should have. So that's kind of, that's kind of where my head's at. I don't know if you guys have ever felt similar to that, but that's how I feel today. I wanted to kind of go through maybe one or two different stories as well. I know I did an episode like this before where I kind of shared some stories of people that reached out to me on Instagram, and they kind of talked about like anxiety attacks, talked about different things that they've went through. So I'm just pulling them up on my screen here right now so I can kind of chat with you guys if you're interested in hearing about that. I just think it's kind of useful to share these things because I feel like, it kind of helps us understand that no matter what it is we're going through, if it feels weird or whatever it could be, that no matter what it is, you're not alone. And then I also want to talk a little bit about, a little bit more about social media and, why it could help us with our mental health and why it's detrimental to our mental health in other ways. But I think I just want to share this story real quick. So, this person kind of reached out and they said basically that they have anxiety, they have depression, they have ADHD, and they were diagnosed with ADHD kind of earlier this year, more recently, but anxiety and depression a couple years ago. And so they said that their ADHD kind of makes them super quirky and weird. And then they said, that's not even a flex, ha ha ha. But they're also worried always that people think that they're weird and wondering if they're coming off the wrong way or offending people, and that they've lost a lot of friends throughout the years thanks to their impulsive behaviors, and that it's led to their anxiety, telling them that they're not good enough for friends or that no one really likes them or that they're just pretending to be nice in order to be polite. And it goes hand in hand with their depression, making them feel like, maybe they don't really deserve close friendships or they can't really handle them because they kind of deal with like a neurotypical, like they can't really deal with them like a normal person can. And so they find themselves apologizing too often for things that they shouldn't, or it kind of ruins their confidence. And they say, I wish more people could understand the nuances of mental health just a little bit more. I don't expect to be treated special or different, but a little bit more patience would be nice. So I kind of resonate with this quite a lot because, obviously depression, ADHD, anxiety, those are all things that I've been diagnosed with in my life. So I definitely resonate with those things. But especially in terms of like coming off the wrong way or offending people, I definitely know like that's not something I have to wonder. I definitely know that is something that I experience. That's something that, I've dealt with in the past and I still deal with to this day. I can come off as quite offensive to some people in the ways that I say things. And, it really did bug me for a long period of time. I remember like there was so many times where I'd be driving home with like a close friend of mine and we'd be like kind of reflecting back on, maybe I shouldn't have said this to that person, or maybe I shouldn't have spoken this way or thought this way or whatever it could be. Maybe I came across the wrong way, and my message to this person and my message for anybody else that kind of feels the same way is, I've learned to understand that as difficult as it can be to kind of offend the people around you, or kind of feel like, constantly worrying like, fuck, maybe I shouldn't say this shit, or maybe I shouldn't have said that. Understand that you basically have a natural filter on you, a friend filter, and it's going to help push the people away that are going to just kind of get upset or not want to talk to you because of a tough conversation or because of the way that you came across. If someone's, in my opinion, if someone's going to walk away from you or not want to hang out with you because of the way you come across in one conversation, or because they didn't understand you and they don't want to actually get to the root of what the conversation's actually about, or the root of how you actually feel, or why they actually feel the way that they do about what you said, then that's not really someone that I want to consider like a close friend of mine, or a deep connection, or a true relationship, like a friendship. I feel like a lot of us, we're worried about all these surface level things. And if we find ourselves having to think about, oh, maybe I should deliver this message in a different way all the time, then we're not actually being our true selves. And we're wearing just like social masks all the fucking time. And for me, in my personal opinion, that's the root of a lot of anxiety to begin with. Feeling like you have to fucking sound a certain way, or act a certain way, or behave a certain way. I guess those are kind of the same things, but it's just kind of, I think that's the root of a lot of people's anxiety. I know from experience, that's how I felt before. There's been so many times in like social situations where I just think like, fuck, I really hope I don't say something that fucking irritates this person or embarrasses me. And then I realized that, fuck, if someone's going to judge me for those things, then they're not really the people that I want to be around anyways. Even if it is like for those times where you're like, oh, but what if I get in trouble at my work? Or what if I lose my job? What if I don't get this opportunity? It's like, do you really want to be continuing that process of worrying all the time? The idea that you have to worry about it the first time is like perpetuating that you're going to deal with that later on. So that's kind of the one thing that I kind of think about in terms of wondering like, hey, am I coming off the wrong way or offending people? It's like, yeah, you're going to, especially if you're somebody like me who's a little bit more outspoken. If you deal with like symptoms of ADHD and you're, obviously speaking your mind all the time, hyperactive disorder, like it's, that's what the last two letters of that even fucking mean. So you're going to be energetic. You're going to be saying things impulsively all the time. Understand that that's a gift and a curse. And we always just kind of want to focus on the curse of it without actually thinking about the gift of it. You're also the person that actually speaks their mind, which is fucking rare in this world. You're also the person that actually gets to entertain people when you say funny things. Yeah, sometimes it's going to be offensive, and you should probably learn from that. But also, the other side of it is you're going to entertain people. You're going to make them feel good. You're going to You're going to make them smile. You're going to say the things that no one actually expects you to say, because they all think the same way, but they don't have that same impulsivity that makes them say it. A lot of people are just wearing masks, like I've been saying, and so you get to be proud that you're not one of those people. And then you get to maybe lead the way so that they can try and be their authentic selves as well. So that's kind of one of the cool things about it. Yeah, I just kind of want to share that and get that off my chest, because when I read this message, I was like, fuck, I resonate with it a lot, and I know other people feel that way, and I just kind of thought I should share that with you guys. And yeah, I also wanted to kind of address or chat about like kind of, social media, like I was saying as well, because as much as I like to share these stories of like anxiety attacks or anything like that, I think that, with the rise of Instagram and TikTok and all these different fucking forms of social media, we've moved away from like where like Facebook, when it first came in, social media first came in, it was kind of like comparison land. And everyone was kind of comparing themselves to their friends, their family members, whoever they were fucking connecting with on social media. And now I feel like social media has gotten a lot like kind of deeper and darker into our lives. And that's probably partly because of the pandemic. It's probably partly because of like kind of like the lockdowns, social isolation, and how much more time we spend on social media. But it's also the format of social media as well. You know, I find myself, I gravitate more towards like YouTube and podcasts. I'm a lot more partial to those things, and I'm going to get into why I think that is. But I feel like Instagram now, and especially TikTok, are not so much as like comparison land. They definitely are. You know, people compare their partners, they compare themselves, they compare their jobs, they compare the places they live, what they do on a daily basis, the cars they drive, etc. But it also is the ultimate attention span killer. You know, like with Instagram Reels, the longest they're going to be is like a minute. With TikTok, I think the average video, I don't actually know, so don't quote me on this, but I'm going to say I think the average video is probably around like 15 seconds. At least the ones that I get sent by my friends and family members. So, you know, you have to kind of anticipate with something that like that, where the format is like a 15-second video, that you're just looking for something that's going to be a quick hitter, like something that's going to entertain you within the next couple seconds. And it's shortened our attention spans completely. It's in terms of like ADHD in my eyes, it's like, dude, that's probably one of the biggest fucking causes of ADHD in the next generation, is that everyone's just sitting there watching fucking 15, 20, 30-second videos and thinking, if this doesn't entertain me in the next fucking half of a minute, then I'm skipping to the next one. And then we have the ability to just keep scrolling through to the next one. In fact, it never fucking ends. Like even Netflix has this thing where it's like, are you still watching? Like, I don't know if TikTok has that feature or anything, but fuck, they should. I just think it's so weird that way. And as well, you get like this weird fad, and I guess I'm kind of part of this as well, where we have this like fad of like kind of mental health like content creators, and they have people like you know, like on TikTok where they're like sharing their mental health breakdowns. And again, I'm going to get to this because I know I do this sort of as well on my podcast, but you have people like sharing like their like maybe manic depressive breakdowns on fucking TikTok. And I get that they're trying to like kind of validate other people's feelings or let them know that they're not alone if they feel the same way, like the same message that I try and spread. But I feel like a lot of the time it leads to people kind of, you know, self-diagnosing themselves like, oh, I felt the same way one time, so now I guess I have BPD, or like whatever it could be. And I just feel like a lot of the time we turn to our peers, and this is something that we do naturally because this is how little kids learn as well, but a lot of the time we turn to our peers for information about ourselves or the way that we should act or behave or the way that we live, when really, like, I think a lot of us, especially with mental health, these are things that we should be consulting our doctors with. And I also feel like not every fucking bad day is because of depression, but that's another topic for another time. And then there's other things that it's like, yeah, you probably don't have anxiety, but it's just normal to fucking feel a little bit uneasy about a job interview or whatever it could be. And I feel like a lot of these things, like we go through them like one or two times, or when it's actually like a normal time to go through something like that, and we're like, oh, I guess I have a fucking mental illness now. And, yeah, I just feel like that kind of side of it is a little bit toxic, to use a word that I don't really use very often. That's the toxicity of social media. But I just, it's a fine line of sharing, you know, and I've talked about this. I talked about this with the podcast that we had just recently with Morgan. Shout out to Morgan Littlechild. But, you know, in terms of, you know, there's a big difference between airing your dirty laundry out and sharing how you clean it up. And that's why I try and share the content that I do, because I try and not talk about, you know, some of the things that I go through while I'm going through them. I try and talk about in terms of like how I overcame them or how I view them in a different perspective now, because I think that that's kind of a more constructive way to look at it. So I find that YouTube and podcasts, like those types of things, obviously I'm more partial towards it because I have one, but I feel like those are kind of the king of content, because I think that our brains aren't supposed to grasp ideas in terms of like one sentence that wraps it up, or one or two sentences that summarize it, you know, in a little punchline in 15 seconds. I think that a lot of these ideas, these problems that we go through, especially with mental illness, or anything related to it, like any personal struggles that we have, they're topics that have to be spoken about in long form conversations, usually with one other person at least. But I think that even a rant like this could be useful for some people. I know that personally, I always gravitate more towards like kind of interview style, but also to monologue style, I guess you could call this as well. Kind of like that. There's like more of a conversation there, more of like kind of an array of ideas, or at least like a thought process that you could see and go through, like a journey with someone. And I hope that that's kind of how you guys feel about this, because that truly is what it is. It's not just like a pre-planned fucking 15-second, like a punchline that catches your attention. I try and edit some of these clips for social media that make it like kind of a quick clip for you, grab your attention and kind of let you see what the episode might be about. But that's, not really the goal. The goal is to actually I guess the goal is actually to collect my own thoughts and so that when I listen back to them, I understand them a little bit better. So because I think that podcasts are king, I think that's the best way to summarize how I feel about podcasts. I should give a couple quick shout outs to some of the podcasts I've been listening to recently. Obviously, you guys don't need to fucking hear shout outs about like some of the big guys that I always listen to, like Joe Rogan or anything like that. But I want to give some shout outs to some of the smaller podcasts that I listen to, or some of the podcasts that I feel like maybe you might not listen to yet. One of them being, obviously, Plaid Jacket Philosopher, my boy Zach. Used to be a Vancouver boy here, but now he's out in Alberta. I love Zach's podcast, The Plaid Jacket Philosopher, because he kind of relates a lot of the things that we go through, in the blue-collar working class, kind of like obviously in construction. He works as an electrician. I work as a carpenter, so I relate to a lot of the things he talks about. But he also talks a lot about kind of like Canadian politics, Canadian economy, some of the things that go on inside of our country from the layman's terms, like the blue-collar. Anyone could grasp these ideas. You don't have to be an economist, because obviously I'm not, to understand his perspectives and to relate to them as well. So if you feel like you've been a little bit crazy in these last couple of years, and you feel like you just need a buddy that you could relate to, Zach on the Plaid Jacket Philosopher is obviously a great one. The other podcasts I want to shout out was the Multiple Calls podcast. So I recently got to have Scott on my podcast. You guys probably listen to that interview. If you haven't yet, you should go check it out. He runs a firefighting podcast. And again, even if you're not a firefighter, you're going to relate to a lot of the things that he speaks about, because they actually do a lot of advocacy for mental health as well, talking about trauma, talking about anxiety, talking about depression, some of the treatments that he's gone through that, aren't maybe as mainstream as you might think, talking about a bunch of different things you could relate to, whether it's like being a parent, being a hardworking individual, whatever it could be. I recommend you give that a listen to as well, because I've been listening to a lot more of his episodes recently, and I think that great guy, and he's got some great insights. He's really, even the conversation that we had on my podcast, it really changed my life, and it's like something that I've had to go back and listen to multiple times because, well, it helped me out a lot, that conversation. And then the last podcast I'll give a little shout out to is Infinite Intelligence, a little bit more woo-woo, kind of spiritual stuff, like that new agey kind of shit. But there's definitely some things that, I've been relating a lot more to, and it's kind of helped me feel a little bit better about my own journey listening to that podcast. It was recommended to me by a good friend of mine recently. And so, I've been listening to that a little bit more. And that's pretty much it. I don't know. If you guys have any topics that you want to hear me talk about or hear my perspective on, then reach out to me on Instagram. You guys already know my Instagram. It's at Mark D. Henriksen. It'll be at the bottom of the screen down here. It'll be in the show notes below. Reach out to me if you want to share your story, if you want to fucking hear me talk about a topic. I highly appreciate people that go on there and share their opinions with me, even if you think I'm a fucking idiot. Let me know how I can improve. I appreciate that as well. For the month of July, I'm running a little review competition or contest, I guess, a little giveaway for you as well. if you screenshot yourself leaving a 5-star review or writing a little review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, whatever, screenshot it, send it to me. You'll be entered into a draw to win $100 or a $25 gift card to a local business here or wherever you live. Screenshot both Spotify and Apple Podcasts for double entries. A little clip on my Instagram will explain that. It's usually in my stories. It's also pinned to the top of my feed. This is going on just for July, so get your entries in now. Other than that, that's all I got. So fucking have a good day. Like I said, if it's the morning, have a good day. If it's the evening, I hope you had a good day. If not, fucking have a better day tomorrow. But that's pretty much it. So, yeah, much love and peace out, motherfuckers. Love you all. Bye.